Good evening. This is the Zoning Board of Appeals meeting for June 2nd. I'll call the meeting to order, and first on the agenda is the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Mr. Chairman, since we're short-handed here, I'll make a motion we appoint Wesley as a voting member tonight.
Second. Okay, motion's been made and seconded to have Wesley Moisitz.
Maraska.
Sorry. As a full member.
All in favor?
All in favor?
Aye. Thank you.
Okay, roll call.
John Glenn.
Roger Dubois.
George Slingo.
Wesley Maraska.
Okay, now we only have 4.
That's 4 is a quorum for us.
Now, if 3 approve and 1 doesn't, we don't need a super majority or anything like that, right?
I think it takes a 4 vote for us. Anything we do now is a 4 vote unless it was an appeal. So we only have 4 members, so all the members are
It would take 4 out of 5 votes, a supermajority,
right.
to take any action to grant the special permit.
Okay, so
Okay.
we all have to approve.
You would all have to, if you take the vote tonight, you would all have to approve.
Okay.
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 Okay, back to my question.
Yes.
Would you come up?
Yes.
So we're discussing the old proposal that you gave us a couple of months ago.
Correct.
Okay.
Yes, there has been some discussion, and I think if you guys have got the new proposal, that must be in the light of that discussion with the citizens of the town. Under the light of that discussion, we have reduced the size of the graveyard. And I was out of the country for 5 weeks, so our engineer is not here. So I don't know. I was not expecting.
Is he on his way?
Pardon?
Is he on his way?
No, he's not.
Oh, he's not?
No, he's not. Yeah. So I was not expecting that we will be discussing that plan in this meeting.
Okay. So, all right, so we do not discuss that. It's off the table. All right, so for the original plan.
Yeah, back to the original thing.
Does anybody have next?
Yeah.
Yep. Mr. Brackett.
Yes,
You have a pen I can borrow?
I do.
Thank you. Okay.
Oh, I had a list, did I? Gary, can we limit the number of graves?
I think if you're talking about limiting the acreage that's devoted to the cemetery use, I think you have a right to apply reasonable conditions to the request.
Okay, my intention, until I saw this new map, was to approve first phase, phase 1, which was A, right?
Yep.
That would have given them over 100 years of graves at the rate that they bury. Yeah, well, actually, I come up with 226 years. So the first thing that I'd like to have in there is that we limit it to phase 1. Just as a side note, the definition in our zoning bylaw of a structure, a combination of material to form a construction for use, occupancy, or ornamentation, whether installed on, above, or below the surface of land or water. That would cover a vault.
Mr. Chairman, I'm not sure it would cover a vault. It might cover something like an underground shelter, some other type of facility where you actually are constructing some type of a facility
Yeah.
below the surface of the ground. But
You wouldn't think it would cover a vault or a casket?
I don't expect that it would, but I'd be happy to research it and report back to the board.
No, I was just, by limiting the number of graves, under the Dover Amendment, we're allowed to look at density and number of structures.
Yes, you are allowed to, you are allowed to consider density as one of the particular dimensional requirements
Right.
under 40A, Section
Right.
3.
But just to back up, my reason for limiting it is I think that they are a structure, and therefore we are allowed to limit them.
Are there going to be votes, or are they going to be, is the Board of Health pushing for mandatory that it's going to be in a vault?
I don't know. I don't know what the Board of Health's doing. You know as much as I do. They only went once to the Board of Health. The Board of Health has got no information from them whatsoever. They, as far as I know, they requested some information, but they never got anything.
Right, there was a request for information which was to have been received by March 11th in preparation for the March 15th meeting. That information was not submitted by March 11th. On the 14th, the applicant requested a continuance of the March meeting. They then requested a continuance of the April meeting, and then in May, they've asked that they be continued generally before the Board of Health until such time as the zoning board completes its deliberations. So there's only been one public hearing before the Board of Health
Right.
to date under Chapter 114, Section 34.
Yeah, so they don't have any information.
So, Mr. Dubois, so I understand your concern is that you are concerned about the density within that Phase 1 as to the number
No,
of...
phase one, we'll give them phase one without changing any of the layout that they've got. I just brought it up as just as a point of information, that that's what our zoning bylaw says the definition of a structure is. Which I thought was kind of odd, above and below the water, you know. Did anybody else got anything else? They'll have to get a sign permit. The building inspector would take care of that. A driveway permit, again, they're going to change the entrance, they're going to have to get driveway permit approval from the highway department. By changing the use of the entrance, you know.
Well, they have to get all kinds of permits, right?
Yeah.
So anything that we do tonight is all subject to them obtaining of them. Yeah. We could grant them a special permit.
Yeah, subject to all that stuff.
But it's always going to be subject to all these other
Yeah.
requirements.
Well, I think the building inspector would take care of all that anyway, since he really is the enforcer of the sign permit,
Right.
so they'd have to get a sign permit.
What about
And
the-
the zoning bylaws require a driveway permit when you change the use of it,
Okay.
okay? And then site plan review is just triggered when they have more than
Oh, so
4
many
or 6
parking.
parking.
So they got to go to a planning board.
So the planning board, that's their jurisdiction, and they'll get in touch with them and tell them they gotta go to them.
And what about the never mind the public health?
That has nothing to do with
With
us,
us.
it's a separate issue.
But again, they couldn't act on this if the public health
Right.
trumped this
Right.
for whatever
So if you wanna
reason.
hurry up and get this over, I mean, unless somebody else has got something else they wanna put in there.
As far as Phase 1 goes, I agree with that. I think that we should only approve phase one.
Phase one being what now? Can we?
Exactly.
Can we spread that out
What's
so that everyone's aware of what that is?
Basically, it'd be like just this side.
It's just A here,
Yeah, hey,
so it's roughly, how many acres?
2.5.
2.5 acres.
Yeah. Now, Gary, do we vote on item by item? Do we take a vote on item by item that we want to put into special
As
permit?
to the various conditions that you want to
Yeah.
impose, I would recommend that you do that unless you've got a consolidated motion with all the conditions. And,
Well,
Mr. Chairman, if I can, one issue that I meant to bring up earlier, before we started the discussion about Phase 1, is I just wanted to provide you with copies of correspondence that relate to a basic issue involving the applicant. You should have before you a copy of a letter that I sent on May 24th to Attorney Tallerman, and then a letter that on May 16th that Mr. Balakonis sent to Annabelle Meninsky. If I just refer your attention to Mr. Balakonis's letter first, that was providing her with notice that she has not filed the notice of intent to convert the land by sale, as she's required to under Chapter 61A of the Mass General Laws, and that the town, reminding her that the town has a right of first refusal on the property for 120 days after the receipt of that notice of intent. Greg advised me earlier today that he has yet to hear back from Ms. Meninsky. I also wanted you to know that on May 24th, I sent a letter to Attorney Tallerman in which I was writing in response to an email he had sent me on May 5th, in which he asked me to forward any notice that she, Ms. Meninsky, has provided to the town of Dudley pursuant to Chapter 61A. And I advised Mr. Tallerman that we had not received any notice to date, but that Mr. Balakonis had sent a letter on May 16th regarding her responsibilities under the statute. Mr. Tallerman and I have a difference of opinion regarding whether or not the town has a right of first refusal. He's taking the position that if it's a commercial, residential, or industrial use that's being made of the property, that only then would there be a right of first refusal, and he's claiming that a cemetery does not qualify. And I told him I'm taking the position, and I have received support from other municipal law attorneys that I respect, that any conversion of agricultural land to a non-agricultural use would involve a cemetery, that would require the notice to the town and the 120-day period. So this brings to bear the basic question as to the standing of the applicant to be pursuing the zoning relief, because a party either has to be an owner or a contingent owner of property. In this case, the applicant is a contingent owner under a purchase and sale agreement, but that purchase and sale agreement is subordinate to the town's right of first refusal. And until such time as the town decides whether to exercise that right of first refusal or not, acting by the selectmen, and then by town meeting to appropriate the funds to acquire the land, technically there is no clear avenue for Ms. Meninsky to transfer the property to the Islamic Society.
So how should the board proceed, this board?
Well, anticipating the concern, there was some question as to whether or not there was going to be a request tonight to substitute a new plan for a reduced size of the cemetery. That raised several questions, which Greg and I talked about today. The issue of the need to possibly reopen the public hearing, because we now have a different plan than we had back in February when we had a full room in attendance, or it could be a withdrawal of the present plan and a new application with the new plan, which would then generate a new public hearing. So that's one issue that's presented, that I thought was going to be presented tonight by way of the plan. Absent that, if we're going to be granting any special permit relief, it would have to be conditioned upon the fact that the applicant
Actually,
is entitled to the property after the period of time that the town has to consider the right of first refusal.
so shouldn't we probably just, as a board, postpone until some of these things can be determined?
That would be appropriate. We could do so if we have the approval of the applicant to extend the time limits under 40A Section 9 that governs special permits. We could extend the time for the hearing so we could see how some of these issues are going to play out. If in fact the applicant is going to submit, have its engineer present the new plan as an alteration, because normally once the public hearing is closed, amendments to the original plan cannot be received. So it's a shame that we didn't hear this proposed alternative during the third public hearing of the board, when you could have continued the public hearing to allow for further input from the neighbors.
Mr. Chairman, can we ask the applicant if they would postpone, seek an extension of time so that this could all be worked out?
Actually, unfortunately, our attorney is not here. I don't know. So what is the...
We're asking you if you could, permission to give us more time so we can find out all the avenues so that,
in the current situation, I think unless you will send a letter to us and then we will respond to it, or you want to...
basically, with this other plan and everything else,
Okay.
because right now, we're under a time restraint because we closed the public hearing.
I see.
So now, to extend the public hearing and reopen it to reflect the new plan, we would need more time. So
You're
we're
going to
asking,
need more time.
yeah, you guys would.
You need more.
Yeah,
You're not prepared to bring anything forward tonight.
I understand that.
Do you want to bring anything forward?
Today? No.
Not today, in the future.
Yes, we do.
Yes, you do.
Yeah.
So you need to ask us for more time to present your case. Are you prepared to do that? I'm asking a question.
The other
I
gentleman
heard
was-
that gentleman said that, but
Yes, please. Yes, go ahead and extend the time. It's okay to extend the time.
It's our request that that it should be extended because we have been discussing among ourselves a different plan.
okay.
A smaller number of graves also. So I think we have been trying to make the things more acceptable to the town. So we are working on it, and I think if more time is given, we will present something different.
Mr. Brackett, is there
Yes.
a certain amount of time that we should, George? Mr. Fox?
My name is Peter Fox, member of the Board of Selectmen. I think this is getting quite confusing for everybody. For the zoning board, for the selectmen, for citizens, as well as the much larger society. You're trying to take action on one plan when the town received a copy of a possibly proposed new plan. And I find it very difficult to take action on one when that might not be the plan that they're looking at. They want to submit to the town another plan. So I don't think any action should be taken at all. And personally, I think that if you had a public hearing on Plan A, now they're submitting Plan B, that the public has a right to participate in that plan also.
Absolutely. the record? Should there be a time, 60 days, 90 days?
What I have, I just, anticipating the possibility, I just have a simple statement that I agree the public hearing in this application for special permit may be reopened by the Dudley Zoning Board of Appeals. If the applicant submits that, then if the public hearing is reopened, there's no particular time limit on the
Okay.
completion of the public hearing. It's, the 90-day clock begins when you close the public hearing. So the question what we would have to do would be to receive the new plan and any supporting documentation, description. Then we would provide a new notice to the abutters for the public hearing, since the last public hearing was closed. There'd be a new notice of the public hearing, and then they have a right to appear and comment on the new plan.
Sounds good.
Is that acceptable?
I guess I just have this simple.
I like the new plan.
I can just have your signature on this.
Should we tell that? I like the new plan compared to the old plan.
You get the traffic off the road, away from the hump.
I was just wondering where that pole was. Oh, okay, all right.
I must say, principally, I
I
agree,
like that plan.
but I want my attorney to look into it.
The difficulty is that we're working under a time limit. We're working under a time limit tonight.
No, but see, technically, we are here, but we were
Well,
told
they're
that
saying that's
you
what
are
they're
going to go for some kind of verdict tonight. You are going to tell us whether what will be the ultimate
around August
outcome of
4th.
our existing plan.
Because we got a,
That's
we
why
got
we
a
were here
30-day
tonight. We
extension.
didn't know that you are already
Because when they
working on
asked for an extension last month,
the reduced, whatsoever
got a-
we have
I think
reduced plan,
we got a
you are
30-day
working on that one. So
extension.
that's why we were not
unless they just took
clear
the
about
fact that we
that
didn't
one.
Oh, I see,
post the
okay.
agenda.
So,
The plan was delivered
yeah,
to Town Hall today,
yeah.
and so that was.
So maybe if we request, Mr. Chairman, then,
Are you sure?
Mr.
I don't have a, what?
Yeah,
We wanted to consent over time. Excuse me, Mr. Chairman. My name is Amjad. I'm president of Islamic Society of Greater Worcester. You know, we cannot sign this document immediately because we were not aware of this any of this one that this board is going to discuss about our new plan. So because we were not clear about this one, so is that okay if, Mr. Chairman, you allow us at least 2 or 3 days, then
I'm sorry, I can't understand you.
I have difficulty understanding.
you know,
Can you hold it, speak, a little bit far away,
Further away.
further away.
further away. Oh.
Yeah, from the microphone.
As per my understanding, we were not here to extend or to work on, to listen to our, to work or to tell something about the new plan, the reduced plan. We were here to listen to our existing plan, what will be the outcome of our existing application that we submit a long time ago. So if we have to sign on these documents, we definitely need some time. We need to discuss with our attorney, and then after that, we will love to sign it.
So you don't want to extend the,
No, we definitely, maybe not, I'm not sure, but definitely we want
Okay,
to do that.
what
We
you
want
wanna
to
do is you wanna talk
we
to your
we
attorney
definitely
first.
want to work out with the board. Yes, that's for sure.
Actually, the thing is, we are, in principle, we agree if you want to extend it, but we haven't consulted our attorney. So we are asking that give us a couple of days. Let's us discuss with our attorney. If he said it's okay, then we will send you a letter that yes, we agree to postpone it or extend the closing of this case.
can we extend, Mr. Chairman, to Gary?
The only difficulty, Mr. Chairman, is that your 90-day clock is ticking. We, at the last meeting, actually, on June, the last meeting that you had in early May was continued to tonight. The applicant was prepared to ask for a continuance that night to see what the outcome was at town meeting. But then we had a notice, a posting issue that caused us to have to continue it, but clearly the applicant wanted to continue it anyway. We're now at the 60-day mark for the deliberation period, the 90-day period, I believe, Gloria, July 2nd?
I believe so, but,
July.
and our next meeting is after that.
That's right. So the problem we have for the applicant's understanding as well, and the members of the crowd, is that we're bumping up against, without an extension in place, we're bumping up against the 90-day constructive approval timeframe. So I think we really need to know tonight if they're willing to reopen the public hearing. It may only require one more public hearing on an amended plan, and then we can have a new period of deliberation. But
Mr. Chairman, in that case, can we have at least 1 hour so that we can come up back within 1 hour? Is
1
that it?
hour?
Yes, please.
We have another case.
Yeah. Give 'em an hour.
I think, we want to call our engineer and discuss with him on the phone at least. So what do they suggest if they want to extend it? We are here, just we'll get back if you postpone it for an hour or just maybe 30 minutes, maybe.
Well, we have another public hearing after this.
Yeah.
An hour. What's the board say?
Sure. Yeah, I'll wait an hour.
Okay.
We can try to get this thing done.
Mr. Chairman, we will come back as soon as possible.
thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Otherwise, Gary, we're going to have to go ahead with our decision tonight,
I agree.
because otherwise we're going to get caught short.
Mr. Excuse me.
Sorry? I'm sorry, is there, hold on 1 second.
Are they surrendering any rights by agreeing to ask or grant their permission for an extension of the hearing and the deadline?
No, they're not.
Okay, I think that they need to know that. If they did know that, they might not need to ask for a delay on this. I think that might be one of their records. Keep it in mind,
I'm sorry. You were wondering whether you should abstain?
Are we gonna, I mean, they're here, aren't they? It's up to, George, do you want to call the other people?
Yes, well,
Yep.
you have another matter on, Mr. Chairman?
Yes, we do.
Is it- Let me pull up the plan, let's see if I can show you.
Yeah.
Okay, public hearing for Paul and Christina Mank, for a special permit to vary the minimum lot area from 43,560 to 25,700.4 square feet, and a variance to reduce the minimum right side setback from 25 to 16.5 to build a garage. I'll open the public meeting at 7:44.
George, here's
Okay.
here's the plans.
We have some plans.
So they want to bring that driveway right into the new garage? This one?
Yeah, so this is the driveway.
They're gonna just have the shoot right in.
And they got 17.6 here. They're asking for 16.5, so it gives them an extra wiggle room.
For the overhang.
Yeah.
I don't see a problem with this.
Although,
All the butters though.
I don't know if there's any butters here or not.
Are there any abutters for Dave's Way?
For a two-stall garage?
One story? Not three?
No, we
no
get
in-law
in trouble with them
apartments or anything.
two-story garages.
Yeah.
Dog houses and I make a motion.
Okay.
Grant the special permit and to vary the minimum lot area from 43,560 to 25,700. And variance to reduce the minimum right side setback from 25 feet to 16 and a half feet to build a garage.
Second.
Okay, a motion's been made in second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Against? Motion carries.
So there's your,
Mr. Chairman,
there's your language.
You're gonna be,
we'll take a short recess.
yep,
Can I just let you know what's going to happen now?
right. Oh, sure. Gloria's gonna tell you.
Hi. There's a 20-day appeal period after we make our decision. So and it begins when I file with the town clerk. That 20-day appeal period, in that 20-day appeal period, you'll get a letter from me
It was too far, it was too
telling
close to
you
the...
when you
Yeah,
can come back to the town
dance.
clerk to obtain
Because I'm going deaf
letters to
anyway.
take to the registry, a no appeal letter.
Deaf,
to
dumb,
take to
and
the
blind
registry.
all at once.
Okay,
I
and
don't
you need
stand
to
a
take that
chance,
to the
John.
registry and get the seal from the registry and bring it back
I
to the
like what your
building
buddy
inspector
says,
to get
on
your
the side.
building permit. Okay? And all those instructions will be in that letter. Okay?
Can the zoning board take no action on the first proposal?
Okay,
That's it.
motion to recess?
Most to recess about 15 minutes?
I'll second that.
Okay,
Do you guys, can you
motion.
sign?
Yes, that's the reason that I suggested that if,
Why not?
Yeah, because we usually sign
You
it.
sign it anyway.
in giving the public notice.
A motion's been made in
proposal.
second
So,
for recess.
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 Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
oh, I agree.
Motion carries.
Well, it's interesting because there
Sir?
We have discussed with our engineer, and we are not here to request an extension for the meeting. We were expecting that the zoning board will decide on our existing application, the old application. So you still have till July 2nd time frame. So we would like for you guys to make a decision on our existing application with whatever conditions if you want to impose, if you want to limit the grave sites or whatever as you guys were discussing. So we will be okay, but we are not here to request reopening the case.
All right, thank you.
That's the only condition I had on it, because the rest of it's going to be taken care of by the building inspector.
Oh, I wanted to do the driveway.
Okay, right, you wanted a pull-off lane.
Right. I would like to see that, and I would have liked to
But
see.
wait a minute now. We can't vote on anything tonight. Wesley, have you followed through on this?
No.
And, where's Bill? Bill LePage didn't call in? I know Brian's not coming because they had a problem in the family. They had a death in the family, so he couldn't come. But,
And John Julian.
and John Julian.
Said he wasn't.
So, you want to postpone this till next week and have another one next week? So that we can get these guys down here and vote on this and get it done?
I won't be here next week. I don't know if we need to go ahead without me.
Because if we vote tonight, Wesley's going to abstain, we're going to have 3 votes, everything we do is going to be denied.
Right.
Right.
So, I'd make a motion that we meet next Thursday. Same time, 7 o'clock, and we see if we make sure we get enough guys down here to vote on it.
Okay.
What's the date on that?
Motion, I'll second that.
What's the date on that?
It's 9th? That's
16th,
next week?
next week. Next week you're talking about the 16th.
Next week.
Today's the 2nd,
Let's just get a
Today's the
date.
2nd, so all right, so the 9th,
7 and 2.
the 9th.
Nice.
I have to check my phone.
George.
Yes.
Deliberations, it sounds like you're fixing an election, for Christ's sakes. You're either gonna vote tonight or you're not. I mean,
Well,
you're gonna
we
wait
can't.
until you get all the votes you want to say the right thing and then hold a meeting? Sounds like you're fixing an election.
No, right now, we can't.
You have a quorum.
Yes, we have a quorum.
The fact of the matter, sir, is I am not prepared to vote for this.
And then
I'm
you
a new-
vote accordingly then.
I'm a new member. I didn't follow all the criteria like for the phase 1. I'm not sure what all the criteria is. So if I'm not comfortable, I will not
He wants-
vote.
And you have that right, as any other board member would have that right, even if they had all the information. You have a legal quorum, but it sounds like you want to postpone until you get the votes you want, like a fixed election.
No, because at the next meeting, if he looks through all the paperwork, and he might vote at the next meeting, if he has time to look at it.
Okay,
We don't have to make a decision for 90 days,
I understand that.
so that's what we're doing.
But I'm talking
That's what we're
about-
doing. We're
I'm
not
talking about
fixing
just
anything.
deliberating.
We're not fixing anything.
Well, I was just talking about.
You're suggesting that we are.
Yes, I am.
Have a seat, sir. That's ridiculous. We're still deliberating. We have 90 days to do it.
Absolutely.
And we're going to do that. I make a motion that we meet next Thursday, June 9th, to continue our deliberations. Will somebody give me a second? All those in, Mr. Chairman?
All those in favor?
Aye.
All right.
Motion carries.
Mr. Chairman, if I can just mention for the benefit of the individual here, that it's been my experience attending public meetings of zoning boards and planning boards, boards of selectmen for more than 40 years, that the fact that we do not have a sufficient number of qualified voters to vote up or down It's not a question of fixing the vote. It's a question of making sure that we can have a vote by 4 out of the 5 members as required by the statute. And I don't think there's any indication that we're trying to somehow or other create a decision one way or another.
First of all, I will apologize for the terminology used in fixing the election.
Thank you.
I will apologize for that. However, the question remains the same. During your deliberations, okay, where you didn't feel you had enough votes because of a possible extension, okay, so postponing, that was the reason for changing your meeting date till next week. You have a legal quorum. You have enough people. I understand, okay, that the new member may not be up to speed, and I appreciate his candor in saying that, okay? My terminology is offensive, and I apologize for that. But you do have a legal quorum tonight. You do have 4 people out of 5 that are in attendance. And yes, you have a 90-day window to not take action tonight.
Tonight-
And if that what was being said, that, well, maybe we'll take another look at this and hold a special meeting within
Well,
90 days.
this
fine.
is-
But it isn't the way you presented it when it came across out this way.
What we're doing tonight, the way this has worked and we had it worked out is, what we're doing tonight is voting on conditions that we want to impose. The actual vote on the special permit was not going to take place until next month, because Gary has to draw it up so that we can sign it. So tonight, we're strictly voting on the conditions. We want to put conditions on it, otherwise if we take the vote tonight, no conditions will be on it. And then next month, we'd be just signing it blank.
You heard my concern, you have my apology, but you heard my concern.
But I have one question. Isn't the meeting next month going to be outside of the 90-day period?
It's next week.
That's next week. That's why we're having it next week.
I thought you said next month.
I did, I'm
You
sorry.
misspoke.
Poor choice of words.
Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
A motion to adjourn.
Well, wait a minute, we got minutes. Right, we got minutes.
A lot of minutes.
Yeah, we got 3 of them, Gloria, and I noted on them some changes that should be made,
Oh, okay,
okay?
all right. So we have 3 sets of minutes.
Yeah, some of them, there's a couple of changes in there, it's just typos.
So March 3rd.
We'll go through them.
I haven't seen them.
April 7th.
That's what we,
Has Gary made any changes to the minutes?
I have not made any no.
Could we open up the discussion to conditions, if that's what you want to do?
no, the conditions are strictly with us, with the board.
But wouldn't you accept any input on a condition?
Not on the deliberations, Gary?
That's correct. The public input portion has been
It's all
completed.
done.
Once the public hearing is finished, the deliberation is entirely among the members of the board.
So next Thursday, will it be open for public input?
It's open for public viewing, but not public input.
That doesn't seem quite fair.
Well, those are the rules of Chapter 48 that govern planning boards and zoning boards when granting variances or special permits. And the deliberation phase clearly is restricted to the board members discussing the merits of the application.
What's the point? Because you're going to come in with a new plan.
No, apparently they've
Not what they
decided,
said.
they've decided that they're not proceeding with a new plan. They're going with the original plan.
The original?
They're going with the original? Yeah. And we're,
Revised.
Gary, if they decide in 2 or 3 weeks they want to use the new plan, they have to start this process all over again.
They would.
They'd have to make an application for another special permit, be another public hearing, the whole thing all over again, right?
Would.
Now, if they change the plan, if the Board of Health makes them change the plan, they have to come before our board again.
They'd have to come back to amend.
Because our
if-
special
if-
permit-
If this board grants a special
but
permit,
if they don't have standing under
Board-
61A, they couldn't even do that, could they?
well, that's the reason I wanted to raise that issue with the board. The question is the fact that we don't seem to have any word coming back from Ms. Meninsky about her statutory responsibility We have the vote of town meeting last week, which was to endorse acquiring the land, so subject to an appropriation vote at some point. So there are a number of issues that,
So we might have the right to refuse to accept a new application from them, because there's a cloud on whether they're an appropriate applicant.
that's right, if they don't have the proper standing and proper interest in the land, especially in this case where the town is the party that has the right of first refusal. And our office has been involved in cases brought to enforce that right against a third-party purchaser. So,
Jim?
Question for Attorney Brackett. There's been no notice of intent, like you just mentioned just now. Can it be voted legally?
well, as I indicated earlier, there could be a vote which would be conditional upon the
Completely
proper.
wrong. That's not how it's supposed to work. The way this whole process starts, notice of intent, the purchase of sale, so we know what they're gonna pay for the property. That's how the whole process starts, am I correct?
Oh, yes, no,
Why are we
we're,
doing this then?
why are we doing what? Why are we
moving ahead
engaging in
with
this?
votes when that has never been received?
Because
Why does that happen?
we've been at this now since January 7th, when the original application was filed, and the board has had 3 public hearings. So we're looking to try to address what we can under the zoning bylaw, while at the same, let me just finish, please. While at the same time, as I mentioned, Mr. Belaconis sent a letter on May 16th to Ms. Moninsky, telling her that she has a responsibility under the statute. And the applicant is well aware of it, because the applicant actually requested to continue the May meeting until they saw the results of the town meeting vote on the article, and the town meeting vote was supportive. So we're trying to assure this is not an exercise in futility here.
Seems like it's very out of order, that's all, I'm trying to say that, you know, to go back and say, well, you know, we're gonna go in condition with what was said earlier or whatever later, seems like it's very out of order.
No, I understand. I understand your concern, and that's why I wanted to raise that issue tonight.
We should do it legally, that's all.
Mhm.
Set that precedent and keep it.
Right, yeah, there are a number of things about the way this application has been presented which are out of the ordinary, so.
In my opinion, it should stop until they do what they're supposed to.
Gary, just to clear something up, because they haven't made the application to pull out of 61A, we can't stop our process and wait for that, because we'll run over our time limit.
Oh, I agree. The issue would be, the options would be to deny the special permit because the applicant lacks proper standing, or to grant a
Okay.
special permit.
Oh, okay.
Grant a special permit with conditions. The conditions are that the Chapter 61A issue would have to be resolved. Would also be subject to Board of Health approval, subject to town meeting approval, as required under Chapter 114. So any decision by the board to grant zoning relief in some form by way of special permit can be conditioned to address all these contingencies.
But if we flat denied them because they didn't have standing, this starts a whole lawsuit.
Well, it's possible but they'd have to take a close look at it. I mean, we notified their attorney by the letter I showed you that I sent to their attorney on May 24th, and if their attorney was, would have, I would assume, would have then contacted Ms. Moninsky's attorney, the person, whoever it was that negotiated the purchase and sale agreement, to explain, we've got to take care of this issue. It's got to be addressed and resolved. The town is either going to exercise a right of first refusal or not. And if they're taking the position that a cemetery is not residential, commercial, industrial use, as that statute provides,
Right.
we take the position that it's any non-agricultural use. That's the language used by the Supreme Judicial Court and the Appeals Court in the Sudbury and Bill Ricker cases. So I will certainly inquire of their attorney whether he's had any word from Ms. Moninsky between now and next Thursday.
Just a procedural process question, if you don't mind. So what you're actually going to be voting on is the original 16,000 plot, because they haven't revised the plan, so to speak.
Correct.
Phases.
That's right.
And despite anything that may have been said verbally or press releases, what you have before you is this original plan for 16,000 plots.
Correct.
Irregardless. I wonder if the applicant's aware that by going for broke here and not coming in with a second plan, that should the ZBA deny that special permit based upon the original plan, that they can't reapply for 2 years.
One of the conditions we're putting on the special permit is we're limiting them to phase one. That's all we're approving. We're not approving the rest of the plan.
Well, once you approve the use, the number is arbitrary in the eyes of the law.
They'd have to come back. If they go outside of phase one, they'd have to come back.
And you gave them a special permit for the 16,000.
No, we didn't. No, we didn't. But if you were
That's what you're doing.
Mr. Bryan, I understand that you can set a number, but any court will just simply say, well, where did that number come from? It's an arbitrary number. And so many cases have been thrown out, even by the Attorney General's office, for things being arbitrary like that. So if they approve the use of this land for 16,000, whether it's 5,000, 7,000 is irrelevant. It's approved for the original plan, all phases.
No, the board has the right to, with a special permit, to deny the application for special permit, to approve it as requested, or approve it with conditions. If they approve it with conditions where they're reducing the scope of the project, they're entitled to impose those kinds of reasonable restrictions on the property. There's an understanding that the cemetery use in this RS 87 zone has been approved by the planning board and approved by town meeting and approved by the Attorney General's office. So we have already spoken as a town and said this use can go into a Res 87 zone. I realize there may be some second thoughts about that now, but it is an allowed use. So therefore, a reviewing court would want to determine what are the restrictions that have been imposed. Are the restrictions such as basically to do away with the use, to only grant it in name only, but it's so reduced from the original request? And what are the reasons? Are the valid conditions? Are they reasonable in the eyes of the law? Do you have facts that you can prove to support those conditions? So we have to be prepared when we present the decision to the zoning board that this is a decision we can defend on appeal before the land court.
When I was chairman of the planning board, we did the rezoning, and the reason why we put cemetery use as a special permit is we couldn't go through Res 87 and actually label each individual lot. And the whole idea of the special permit was that each parcel of land would be determined by its own unique features. And that's what the zoning board of appeal does, right? They look at a parcel of land and, you know, what is it good for, whether variance is this or that, what it might be. So to say that, you know, it's a use by right for any lot, no. In Res 87, it's a special permit that after reviewing the conditions and the unique features of each lot, they make a determination.
Right, I agree. It's a use which requires satisfaction of the criteria under the zoning bylaw.
Mr. Joseph?
Yeah, I think there's some confusion here. I've heard two terms that are incompatible. On the one hand, I've heard that you're going to consider the original proposal. The original proposal was 16 acres and potentially 16,000. And then I heard, well, we're going to do parcel one. Or there was a potential motion to do parcel one. To my recollection, there was no parcel one or anything else in the original proposal. It was the revised proposal of 12.4 acres and potentially 12,400 in-ground plots that had parcels, additional parcels that were A, B, C, D, E, F. So I just want to be sure that you're talking, which proposal you're talking about.
The first plan that they submitted, we rejected that plan and
Okay,
so they came back.
We formally rejected it at a meeting and voted.
That's why I want to be sure that people aren't confused that it's the 16,000 proposal, because that was rejected.
Correct.
Okay, that's all I want to be sure. Thank you.
Gary, just as a point, if we put conditions on this and we get outrageous with our conditions and they go back to court, they go to court with it, they'll win.
I don't know. We'd have to certainly make sure that we have reasonable factual support
I mean,
for any of the conditions.
these people want us to flat refuse it. If we flat refuse this thing, they'll just jump into court. Then they'll have 16,000 graves.
Mr. Through the chair, but if there's a reasonable doubt due to the fact that there's a 61A pending, okay, it's not unreasonable to make the denial. Because either way, Roger, I heard you use the thing twice now, you got the fear of court. The courts may decide anyways, no matter what you do, you may end up in court, or we may end up in court as a town, okay? So
We're trying not to.
well, I understand that, and nobody wants to do that, okay? The question is the land in question. Is it suitable for a cemetery? It's not whether it should be in Dudley or not. And hopefully the media gets that. It's not a fact of whether the cemetery should be in Dudley. It's where they want to locate the land of the cemetery in Dudley. And that's our concern, that's our problem. You got an infrastructure problem there that, I'll tell you what, it'll probably cost you $20 million to upgrade the road.
By the way, through the chair, I have to say one thing. At the last meeting that we were here, and there were members of the Islamic Society in the back of the room, and if you recall, I had come up to the podium and I asked, through the chair, the Islamic Society, do you have intent upon selling these lots to parties outside of your own Greater Worcester Islamic Society? And he kind of danced around the question and didn't answer me. And when we left, my husband and I were in the lobby downstairs, and the gentleman from the Islamic Society came up to me and said, you do realize he never answered the question for you, right? And I said, yeah, I do realize that. And I said, he said, you have serious concerns. I said, yes, I have concerns about water. I have concerns about the safety in my street, my neighbors and everything. It's a very narrow, curvy, blind corner, road. It's difficult. There's narrow roads. They're like 16 feet wide. And I can't see hearses and funeral processions go down there. And he said, well, you know what they'll have to do? Then the roads will have to be widened and repaved. And I said, and who's going to do that? And he said, the taxpayers. I
They're
said,
public roads.
excuse me? The taxpayers. Me. I'm a taxpayer. So I'm going to have to widen and repave the roads for this particular use. And to me, it was a very telling.
Well, it sounds like we're holding another public hearing.
I want to thank you for allowing us to
Yes,
even
thank you.
have this conversation. I know you don't need to do this, so first, thank you. But I was really encouraged when I heard that they were down to 5 acres, because that presented a number of opportunities, even within town, maybe even possibly town-owned properties, where this could really work. The particular lot that we're looking at, it's been identified in the 1997 report as a potential home run aquifer for the town. And so I almost feel like we owe it to our future generations to make sure that it stays that way. And then when they did the details, I mean, groundwater is 18 inches, and I understand that's a Board of Health thing, but I was like, 5 acres, boy, they could probably save $200,000, $300,000 in a purchase price. Maybe even do something on Indian Road or something, where they could even keep their traditions if they wanted to, and we could help advocate for them before the state to change the burial laws. But it doesn't seem like any of that's even a possibility, because they're just going for, it's the wrong lot. It's the wrong lot in town.
Point of information, Mr. Chairman, real quick. For you to Mr. Brackett. Mr. Brackett, is it reasonable for the ZBA to reject the current proposal in front of them, 12.4 acres, on the same grounds that they rejected the original 16-acre proposal?
55 acres.
I'm sorry, 16 burial acres versus 12.4. Is it as reasonable for them to do so? The ground is the same for them to reject it?
I'd have to refer to the Plan Review Committee, but my understanding is that the original plan was rejected at the March meeting because it didn't contain sufficient detail, but that the substitute plan did contain...
Had everything on it, yeah.
Had all the detail missing from the first plan.
Okay, thank you.
And once again, thank you very much for letting us back. I'm sorry, I'm a little emotional. But where the second plan is identified to be in phases, doesn't that mean there's going to be a phase 1, phase 2, phase 3? There's going to be other phases. So So therefore, to limiting the number of sites is only going to be a product of who's going to enforce it. Because the first 5 acres will take 50 years, and none of us are going to be here to enforce the damn thing. And they're going to go for phase 2, then phase 3, because you're approving something that's going to have phases to it, not limit to one parcel. It's going to be phased.
We're doing the best we can.
Not-
And we have
Roger-
Gary Brackett sitting with us,
Roger-
and we correspond with Gary Brackett.
I wouldn't want to be sitting in your seat come hell or high water.
So we're trying to get the best deal possible for the town and protection for you people. But we cannot, I mean, unless Gary comes up with something to flat refuse it, I would refuse it tomorrow.
Well, I'll tell you what, we heard from town council at previous meetings that there's a difference of opinion about the Dover Amendment. We don't think it's applicable, the town doesn't think it's applicable. They may think it's applicable, but, so, you know.
You want to put the cost of that to fight that?
Well, I'm gonna tell you what, as a taxpaying resident of this town, I'm splitting the cost anyways, Rod. You're absolutely correct. One way or another, including the infrastructure that has to be upgraded and everything else is gonna have to be done. I'm gonna be footing the bill for it.
If he gives us a reason to deny it, I'll deny it. I'll vote to deny it, but I'm not going to lead the town into a long lawsuit.
Mr. Chairman, just to clarify that point, there's been an argument back and forth between Attorney Talman and myself about whether the Dover Amendment applies. If the Dover Amendment applied, it wouldn't require zoning approval at all, and it could be placed anywhere in town on any size parcel. If it was, of course, we have a zoning amendment that has been proposed for cemeteries to be no more than 3 acres of land. But if you take away the Dover Amendment, we still have a zoning provision that allows a cemetery in a residential 87 zone by special permit, even if it was non-denominational, had no religious or educational connection whatsoever. And its special permit is a category where the town has said, we've anticipated cemetery as a use for this property, and it can go in if you meet the criteria. So the Dover Amendment only applies to a certain point here. We've taken the position that they applied for a special permit. We're dealing with a special permit for this parcel.
Thank you. So when you're deciding on the special permit and the uses, you also take into consideration in a special permit and any type of hearing, what type of impact that has on the neighbor and the neighboring structures. Because my understanding is we saw a hearing the last time, you know, where somebody had come before the board and it was a matter of taking into consideration of budding properties that, you know, is that something that you also take into consideration, or is it the fact of the neighbor, butters, and the road itself has nothing in bearing?
Well, just so you know, the zoning bylaw contains the following language. In considering an application for a special permit, due consideration shall be given to the following required findings. One, that the use is in harmony with the general purpose of this bylaw, and 2, that the use complies with the general and specific provisions enumerated in this bylaw. So clearly, the intention of the zoning board in conducting the hearing is to consider the impact of this use on the butters, on the road, on the community as a whole. So.
In that same vein, there have been more than 100 people that have gotten up and spoken about this in a negative way, between the Zoning Board of Appeals and the Health Department, the Board of Health. 2 people spoke positively. One was a lady, a young woman from Worcester, who said she was a funeral director and thought it was a terrific idea. The other was a middle-aged woman from Framingham who claimed to be a municipal attorney, and she went on about the Dover Amendment, neither of which had any right to speak at our meetings. Hundreds of people have spoken against this.
The town reaffirmed the position.
Gary, if Dover applies, we still are allowed to set reasonable conditions under the statute.
Yes, you can still set reasonable density conditions, and while the applicant has submitted articles of incorporation for the Islamic Society of Greater Worcester that date back to a filing the Secretary of State's office in 2004. My understanding of the facts that were presented is that they did not establish that this cemetery was a religious use. And it's a two-pronged test, a religious organization and a religious use. And the board did receive some information from Attorney Scott Fenton, which raised a question as to whether or not the Islamic burial is religious in nature at all, or if it's just a ceremony that takes place. So we have that information in the record, but clearly we have a right to impose reasonable dimensional requirements.
And so if we were interested in, if we were looking at this parcel and we said, listen, potentially you could carve out 5 acres of this parcel, of the 55, and limit it to that 5 acres. And our condition of giving a special permit is you could only use those 5 acres of the 55. If we put that as a condition, the concern seems to be that we're all going to be dead and that they can extend the phases. Just as a matter of law, if we put a condition on there, that's going to follow the land, isn't it? Isn't that going to stay forever?
Yes, it clearly stays with the land, and it would be subject to enforcement. And I would expect to be around after the first phase is over to ensure that enforcement actions are brought.
Okay.
Hopefully so.
When someone suggests that, you know, let's be clear here. There could be phases in theory by the applicant. But we as a board could say, look, I see this 55 acres, and I see your plans, and I see what you want to do. I'm telling you, you can only put a cemetery on 5 of those acres, and I'm going to tell you where they are on your lot. And that's going to be enforceable in perpetuity, right?
That's right. The only way it could be changed is if it came back to the board.
By the town.
The town, Talaman has said over and over that the town will have no jurisdiction over this cemetery.
Because it will be private.
Because it's private. He said that.
Who said this?
The operation.
That is patently false.
That's one of the reasons that you probably heard me comment one night when the representative, Dr. Banassi from the Islamic Society, said that they pay Mr. Talaman to make certain statements. And I told him he wasn't being well served by some of the statements that Mr. Talaman was making. The conditions that are imposed on a special permit are enforceable. They're enforceable by a court action and an injunction. So if someone gets a special permit today and a year from now they're operating on 50% more property than allowed, they have to either come in and seek a modification of the special permit or they have to conform to the requirements, and that can be enforced by an injunction from the Superior Court.
They exhume the bodies.
How is the town of Dudley going to enforce the way the people are buried in this cemetery in a waterproof vault? Are we going to have a representative there?
Well, those are my understanding is, Mr. Chairman, that the applicant has indicated that they're willing to conform to those requirements. I think that would be the Board of Health jurisdiction to ensure that that is taking place, and what actions they would be taking to ensure compliance. They'd have to determine what they're doing right now with respect to the existing cemeteries in town to determine how they enforce the regulations going forward.
Pretty easy.
Chair, please. I just want to comment that the reason they're leaving Enfield is because they're putting mandates to use vaults, and that's why they're leaving and looking for their own cemeteries. And they've been quoted in the papers to say that they want to follow their traditions. The mandate is in Enfield, and they don't want to follow it there.
That's the Board of Health, and if the Board of Health mandates it,
And just
the Board of Health has a lot more power than we do.
And one more thing.
Well, the Board of Health could get an injunction then.
And all you do is, it's I think you can't charge more than a fee of $120 or $150 for a fine.
But they would be enjoined from doing that, from burying against the law.
They could say that they're
So you're concerned about all these hypothetical what-if kind of situations?
No,
Whereas what I'm telling you is that the law would say that they couldn't do it if that was a condition.
I know, well, that's why they're leaving Enfield, is because they're being told they have to do that there.
Mr. Glenn, I think we have to be somewhat concerned about hypothetical situations, because if we don't try to predict, if we don't try to see the future of what might take place, shame on us.
So look at the future. I'm telling you, if we said there was 5 acres set out of that 55, and the other 50, you can't develop, you've got to lease it to a farmer, whatever, and they take it on that basis, that's going to be an enforceable order.
Based on what I saw tonight, I'm not too confident on that. They went from, we'll postpone to no, we're not. See you later. So, thank you.
And I'm just going to, excuse me again, Mr. Chair. Since the moment Attorney Talman came in here beating his chest about the Dover Amendment, there hasn't been any evidence that any cemetery in Massachusetts has been allowed under the Dover Amendment. This would be setting a precedent. Because even the one with the Jewish cemetery that he keeps quoting, that was already a cemetery. That was already zoned for a cemetery. That was only on expansion.
We're not operating, council is suggesting that we don't have to operate with the Dover Amendment's off the table.
Okay.
So don't bring it up.
No, I'm just saying.
It's off the table.
If they're saying that, we're going to come get you because of the Dover Amendment.
Well, they're going to come and get us anyways.
Well.
Right? We're going to get sued one way or the other.
Not if they have to follow the same law as anybody else would have to on that land.
If you believe they're going to come
Like
get us
wetlands.
anyways.
Mr. Chairman, I got a question.
Yeah, you're right.
Initially, they stated that they're going to have 9 to 12 burials annually. Now, is that a reasonable condition, or year or 2 years, 5 years down the road, they're going to have 15, 20, 30? How is that going to play out?
Well, if they can only have, why are they advertising in the Boston papers for cemetery lots?
Right.
But
And on
initially-
their website.
All right.
So can,
I'm sorry, the public hearing is closed.
They have not listed one board, I want Conservation Commission.
Right.
Not one board have they met any of the, things that they were
Got any
supposed
other
to do.
business?
None of them have been followed at all, so why do you think they don't follow
What is it?
after? That's why
Oh, I didn't sign it yet.
They're setting precedents by how they do things. So why are we so worried about being sued by them? They have done nothing that we have legally from this town put forth to them. So why are we so worried about being sued by them?
They have
Because
not
they've done nothing in their process of doing anything legally.
I'm just going to tell you one little story. I was a building inspector in Grafton for 15 years. I had a complaint from the neighborhood that a girl had a horse right in the middle of the neighborhood. So I went out there and I sent her a letter and said the horses are not allowed. She says, I'm educational. I'm allowed. You know something? She beat me in court. And she was educational because she gave lessons on that horse. And the whole neighborhood was out to crucify me, just like some of you people. And I lost the case. Because she went under the Dover Amendment. She's agricultural.
I'm just surprised that nobody else, anything that's being brought before any boards, if we ever did it this fashion, would never move forward.
That's right.
And yes, we let this just slide and slide and slide for months. This thing should never have even been off the ground until that notice of intent, purchase and sale in hand by the town hall, by the selectmen's office. It should never have even got going.
Well, here we are.
Well,
Here we
there's
are.
every now and then.
Do we have a motion to adjourn?
I just want one more question to Harry, and we get out of here. Can we deny it because they haven't pulled out a 61A?
I'll take a further look at that. I've reviewed it, as I indicated in when I mentioned earlier. The reason I sent the letter to Attorney Talman was I anticipated the question coming up as to whether or not the party, as I mentioned, has proper standing to secure zoning relief. You're either an owner, and the owner signs the application for special permit, or you're a contingent owner, contingent upon getting the zoning approval for the purchase of the land. In this case, They haven't provided us, I don't believe, I've gone through the file, I don't think we've seen a copy of the purchase and sale agreement.
So let me ask you this. If somebody made a motion right now to deny them because of 61A, would that be the end of this?
I can't recommend that to you tonight.
Okay.
But
for next week?
But essentially, we'd be determining that after this period of time, they have not established proper standing to secure zoning relief.
And we could do that next week? Did we decide we're meeting next week?
Yes, we'll
Yeah,
deal
we'll
with
be
that.
next
So do you think you would have an understanding of where?
Well, I'll clearly have an opinion for you by next Thursday.
Okay.
And they couldn't come back for 2 years if you deny.
No, they couldn't they? Because they never had standings.
They never had standing, it's really not a decision on the merits.
So they could come back.
Usually if a petition is objected under the merits, there's a 2-year period.
If they come back with a revised plan for
You have to
5
come in
acres,
with
the whole
substantial
round.
They come back under the new rules, which the zoning amendment,
Thank you.
okay? They would come
be
back
no more
under the
than 3
zoning
acres.
amendment. We made an amendment to 3 acres
That's right.
in town here, they would come
Although
back.
that's, actually, I think we had an effective date of
September
September
1st,
1st.
Roger.
Huh?
September 1st.
September 1st.
And we're bumping up against the July 2nd deadline here.
Yes, on constructive approval, so we have to render a decision.
Yeah, we gotta do
I would
something.
recommend we have a decision next week, which I could then reduce to writing and have available for your signature with Gloria.
All right, someone make a motion that we adjourn.
Mr. Chairman, in closing, I want to thank every member of the board. Like I said earlier, I wouldn't want to be in your seat. No local body. You know, you're doing what you got to do in the best interest of the town. We have concerns. They may be conflicting concerns. They may be hypothetical at times. We think we're doing our proper research and finding that stuff out. It's not a matter of Dudley versus any applicant. It's a matter of the land in question and where it's located. So thank you very much.
Thank you.
I got a memo from Deb Thibodeau, the town accountant, that fiscal year closings, end of year invoices need to all be submitted. Any transfers need to be done. There may be a transfer for my salary for the last month. So I can do that on a sheet by changing the accountant. And Greg also sent a memo saying the Board of Selectmen needs to consider end-of-year 3% transfers from outside your budget. I'm not sure what that means.
It's right here. Greg?
Yes, sir. Are you adjourned?
No.
You legally adjourned?
What did your memo mean?
I don't know what memo you're talking about, sir.
3.5%.
3%.
3%.
It means if you need money by the end of the year, let me know.
Oh,
Okay,
so it doesn't mean we have to leave.
Nope, if you need money by the end of the year, let me know.
okay.
Okay.
3.2 million? All right.
I just need your signature, but you can do it.
So
I realize
we're
I
meeting
didn't
next
answer your
Thursday.
question.
Next Thursday.
You have to determine.
Make a motion to adjourn.
I'll make a motion to adjourn. Second.
Second.
All those in favor
All in
say aye.
favor?
Adjourning?
Aye.
The argument.
Motion carries.
Second.